Hey, guys. Gonna give it a minute and see if everyone can come on. I know it's 9 o'clock on a Thursday night. Hope everyone is doing well. I'm gonna give it just a minute to get everyone on. Hey, Chris. If you all can hear me okay, let me know. This is my first time doing live here on my laptop, so I want to make sure y'all can hear me okay. All right. Awesome. Thanks for letting me know. So I want to welcome you guys to the first Behind the Screams live for season 2. We're doing something a little bit different this year than what we did last year, which hey, Joe. Last year, we had a little segment called Behind the Screams, where it was about a 3-minute segment where I would come on and talk about different pieces of equipment that was used during the episodes and different techniques that were used. So we thought we would take it a little step further and actually go live talking about the episode, talking about some cool things we've got going on, and just interact with everybody. So we're anticipating maybe an hour-long show, 30 minutes to an hour, but we're going to see how things go. But right now we're looking at an hour. And like I said, we're just going to talk about some of the cool things. I hope you guys will interact with me a little bit here. Looks like we've got Dr. Chris Sumner online. We've got Joe, and Joe is also my paranormal crush. So I'd like to welcome you guys. Anthony, Jason Lawson, David and Carol Connett, Donna Cook. I think we're going to go ahead and get started. I know some of you guys joined us this past Saturday at the big Harley Davidson event, and that was just way cool. And I want to thank you all for coming and checking that out. Met a lot of really cool people. We premiered the episode and listened to Mother Legacy, who is an amazing band, and we've got the pictures posted up on the site. So we were able to talk to everybody, tell them what we're doing, and then also show the episode. We did a 45 minute question and answer session there and got some really cool questions. So don't be shy, and I'm going to try to moderate this here on the side as well if you all have any questions. So I'd like to say hey to Eddie and Brooke and Sharon Newport. We're also going to bring on a special guest here in a little bit. If you've seen the episode, you'll see that it was a collaboration episode with Soul Sisters Paranormal. So we're going to get into it, and maybe about 20 after, bring Dr. Sumner on, and we'll talk about some of the things that we did during the episode. Some of the things that you'll notice this season that's a little bit different from last season is we did more traveling and traveled to further locations. I think we're in 3 different states this year. We also, there's more motorcycle riding and more talk about different rides and the area where we were riding. In this episode, the reason we chose to do Brushy Mountain as our premiere episode was because there's some amazing riding up in that area. And you can get to Brushy Mountain on some very cool roads. If you're within a 2-hour radius, either to the north, south, east, or west, there's some amazing areas. And one of the cool rides up there is Tennessee 116, which is the Devil's Triangle. And we highlighted that in this episode. I know a lot of the folks that follow our show are bikers, and not just paranormal investigators, but they're bikers and history enthusiasts. So we're trying to bring in the ride aspect as well. And one of the cool things about Tennessee 116 is the fact that it's a pretty dangerous route. It's unforgiving with its twists and turns, there's a lot of drop-offs, sharp hairpin turns. And so we were able to really kind of parallel that with Brushy Mountain. Petros and the whole area up there around Walden's Ridge is just completely gorgeous. And so we wanted to be able to highlight how beautiful the area is, but also how dangerous it is, by talking about that with the prison as well as the roads. From where I live now, Brushy Mountain is about an 1.5-hour ride from here. So I hope that you all have seen the episode. I'd like to say hi to a few more people. We've got Steve on, Patrick, Allison, Maddie, Tracy, Dave. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. If you've not seen the episode, there's going to be some spoilers on this. So, and like I said, we're just trying this to see how the live works. But so what we did was we set up a collaboration with Soul Sisters, and the prison up there, Brushy Mountain, it's a newly opened tourist attraction. It closed in 2009, and now you can go there. You can do daytime tours, you can do paranormal investigations, and you can also have dinner at the warden's table, as well as take some of their Tennessee moonshine. So so that place is cool because that you can do all of that as well as the paranormal investigation. There are a lot of things to cover when it comes to the prison, and that's why this worked out really well for a collaboration. You guys know that when I'm doing these investigations for the show, most of the time I'm at the small local locations. Well, Brushy is actually local to where I grew up. I grew up about 30 minutes north of there. And because it's such a large complex with the many different buildings inside the prison walls, we weren't able to cover all of it. So it just made sense to do it as a collaboration and take it on in that direction. But there's a lot of things that happen up there. You'll see from the video that there was a lot of famous inmates, a lot of stories. James Earl Ray, George Hyatt, and Byron Lotax Looper were housed in there. And I could have spent an entire season talking about Brushy Mountain and how just some of the stories that went on inside. But we actually chose to tell the history of how the prison became, how it became an actual prison, how it was a moneymaker for the state of Tennessee, as well as Petros. And so when it closed down in 2009, just generations of families had worked there. And so when it closed, it was a really sad and devastating day for the community. So what we wanted to highlight was, how it became a moneymaker, how it came to be with the prisoners serving as minors, and how the state abolishing convict leasing actually created the prison. So anyways, we took that route with it, and we actually got so much stuff from the investigation that we had to cut some things out. Some of the main areas there that we covered were I'm sorry, this is actually the comments aren't scrolling, so I'm going to try not to miss any of these. But anyways, there were several hot spots that we wanted to cover. I've actually investigated the prison on 6 different times. There were a couple times that I was in the prison alone with 2 other ladies. And then there was a couple times that I was up there with a team, and then also a multi-team investigation. I think there was 6 different teams on one occasion when I was up there. But the main hotspots that we've got activity at there were the Hole, which is one of my personal favorites. That's where I slept. The auditorium, that one has a lot of activity. The cafeteria, as well as multiple cell blocks in there. I know there's quite a few people in that area that were prison guards that now work at other facilities that have some really cool stories to tell. But one of my favorite things that I did there was actually sleeping in the Hole. And so the Hole is the solitary confinement area where they used to place the prisoners when they would misbehave. And that area is a pretty crazy area because it's somewhat below ground. And I believe there were 4 cells in there. And when I was in there, there were 2 cots, or 2 bunks in each one. But anyway, so I spent some time. I'd spent the night in there with 2 other ladies who run the paranormal tours. And one of the things I like to do when I go to these places is actually sleep. I feel like it puts you in one of your most vulnerable states, and you can start your recorders and your cameras and have those running and kind of get a freebie, if you will, by you've investigated all night. So just kind of see what happens when you lay down for a few hours. And that was totally unexpected for me. I took a camera recorder and went and laid down. I was the only one in that building, and I slept for, it was right around 3 hours and 30 minutes. And I got a total of 3 minutes and 15 seconds of activity that was going on in there. And everything, if you've not seen the episode, you'll see in there, we tried to do a flashback to that because I felt like that was just too good not to share. But yeah, so that's where that came. And then that was from a weekend investigation. That night I was there, and then later that day, the rest of the team came that I used to be a member of. And so we investigated that night and met a couple other teams. I know I just saw where Brooke and Catherine were on here a little while ago. They were also one of those teams who were on that investigation. So we wanted to highlight that just to kind of give a little background. And we added that to the episode. We also had where we were investigating with Soul Sisters. Because we got so much activity that night, and because I like to really keep my episodes pretty short, I went in and we've actually clipped a bunch of that, and we're going to be releasing more from Brushy Mountain after the season. It will probably be maybe December or January, because we'll be taking a little bit of break after the season. But we're going to go in and we will release that. And there's some pretty cool stuff. We'll go more in depth into the stories about those areas, because like I said, stuff happened in the Hole. There's a guy they call Papaw. There is a guy they call G. And we were addressing those individuals and getting a lot of flashlight activity, a lot of intelligent responses and Class A EVPs that, like I said, we just couldn't show. And the other area that we hit that was pretty crazy was the gymnasium. And, for myself, that was actually my first time investigating in the gymnasium. Oh, no, I take that back. That was the second time. For some reason, we just tended, other times I'd been there, we just didn't spend a lot of time in that area. And we were able to catch, we saw a shadow figure. We believe that we captured that in the episode. It shows up on the SLS, and it also blacks out the REM pod. So we showed that. We played some songs. There's, like I said, there's a whole lot more to each of these different locations that we just couldn't show in the episode. The cafeteria is another one, as well as the auditorium. We didn't show anything going on in the auditorium because, like I said, we just had so much. I'm going to take a minute and I'm going to look over here at some of the questions. And Jason Lawson asks if we got something from a deceased guard. On this occasion, I don't believe we did. We got something on previous investigations there from a deceased guard. I know that there was a guard that was killed out in the guard tower. There was a skirmish. It was a political skirmish, and one of the guards took out his weapon and shot another guard there in the guard tower. We did not get anything on this trip on that one. And you know what people don't necessarily realize is just how big this location is. So, I mean, obviously it's not as large as Waverly or Weston or, you know, those locations, but it's a lot to cover. And for this episode, we were on location for about, I think we were there for 7 hours. So that was a lot to pull down into 37 minutes. Let's see. Anthony Young on here. He mentions the hole. Anthony was also, he was a prison guard there until the prison closed. He's also my cousin, and I know he's got some great stories about that location. Janice says, when you were sleeping in the hole, did you sleep through all those voices and sounds? That was creepy. Yes, Jana, I did. There were a couple times I couldn't get a deep, restful sleep. And typically for myself, I'm not someone that really goes into a deep sleep. But funny story about that, when I was, this was recorded 3 years earlier in the investigation. And there are a lot, it was before the prison was actually opened as a tourist facility. They opened last year for daytime tours and for the Moonshine Distillery. However, at that time, when I did the investigation, they were only open for paranormal investigations. And so it was, you know, they have a lot of rattlesnakes up there on that land, because you know, if you look at the video, and I know a lot of you are familiar with the area, it's very mountainous, and they were, you know, the prison just really sits right down there in between all those mountains up on the Cumberland Plateau. So there's a lot of rattlesnakes. And when I was doing the tour, going through there, doing the daytime tour, finding out from the paranormal tour guides where everything was located, there were bird bones in one of the grates. And I remembered the tour guide saying, you know, the rattlesnakes have been eaten good because there's bones in there. And so when I went in to sleep that morning, I laid down in there, just took my little sleeping bag blanket, and it was literally on just this metal cot. It wasn't even a cot, it was a metal frame that probably wasn't much larger than myself. And I'm tall, so my feet were hanging off of it. But I laid down and I put my boots in the floor with the recorder in them. And I just remembered thinking, you know, I'm going to need to check my boots just to make sure there's no rattlesnakes in there. So, you know, I was honestly more nervous about the snakes, which I'm not really afraid of snakes, but I was more nervous about that than I was the potential activity. But then after I listened and heard all that, and to be honest, I didn't even realize that laundry was upstairs. The way that specific building is set up is you go in, the hole is over to the left. There's an open section, which was the wood shop, and then you go up some stairs and laundry is over the top of it. I didn't even, at that time, know laundry was in there, and that was over top. So it was really cool to, what I believe, catch the residual sounds of the dryers overhead, because those dryers have a distinct sound. So to answer your question, Jana, I wasn't aware of that. Looks like we've got a few more people on here. We've got Kathy and Rhiannon, Coy. All right. Hey, Andrew. Coy says, when you heard "help me" when laying in the bunk, how did that make you feel? Yeah, that one was actually really interesting because we caught the loud "help me" and then the whisper afterwards. I'm not sure if that was two separate entities or if that was more of a, the energy to project the voice. I don't know if it was the same. It just didn't have the energy to come, and it came out as a whisper for the second one. Honestly, it made me sad whenever I heard it. The night was a little creepy, and made me a little uncomfortable after hearing that. I don't know if I would sleep in there again after hearing that. And you'll see some of the different reactions that I got in the hole when we released that stuff later on this year. But the help me really made me sad. And, because even though these criminals did some heinous acts, to be put in, you got to realize this area is pitch black. And if you're in this area for days or weeks, you're going to come out not seeing very well. It was really saddening. Let's see, Sheila asks, what was the deal with the black blob and shadow? And actually, before I go a bit further, I would like to I'm going to try to bring on Dr. Sumner, because other than the time when I was sleeping in the hole, they were a part of this investigation. And so I'm going to see if I can bring her on. Let's see here. I haven't ever done that before, so I'm not quite sure if I can do that on this. If not, we'll just end up. I am not seeing. Okay, I'm not seeing the button that allows me to bring her on. Chris, if you could comment on here, I'm going to try something. I'm going to try to pull you on. Apologize for the delay here. She may have a button that says that she can come on there. Let's see. While she's doing that, I'm going to go on and continue to ask or answer some of these questions. Okay, let's see. Hey, Chris, does that give you an option to on your screen to come on to this join live? See if that, because I don't have an option here. And so, like I said, I haven't done a live that has other folks on it. Do you have something there, Chris? Okay, she is not seeing that. From any time that I have gone live, I've been able to. I know Jason Lawson on here. He's done that quite often. So, anyways, while they're working on that, she may pop on here in a minute. So I'm going to go ahead and answer the questions that a few of them here to the side, just so we don't get behind. But yeah, so So anyways, Sheila was asking about the black blob. And, I'm not sure what that was. I know there have been reports of things being moved there in the gymnasium, as well as things showing up. Let's see here. I'm sorry about that. As well as things showing up, as well as a shadow figure in there. I was using the SLS camera, which is used to map different figures. They will map them as a stick figure. And we just so happened, Chris saw a black blob in the corner. And just as she was seeing that, I caught what looked like kind of like a blob or a clump on it didn't map as a figure. It just kind of mapped as a clump on the SLS camera. And we saw that twice, and we were lucky enough to be able to catch that going across the screen. So let's see here. And actually, Christy, you may have to be on your phone to go live. I remember the last time I did that, I had to go on there. So you might try from your phone rather than here. I'm going to see about catching up on a few more questions here. And yes, Chris commented on, she said the blob was crazy. We all saw it, and Miranda caught it on the SLS camera. Let's see, Rhiannon, she remembers that Easter 3 years ago. Yeah, that when I slept in the hole, that was actually on Easter weekend. That was off the chain there. Let's see. Hey, Jamie. Hey, Monica. Okay, so Monica asks a question that brings up something kind of interesting that happened. Monica asks, did a voice ask for the platters? This is something that I really can't explain. But okay, Chris is on her phone now. Let's see if maybe that will. It should give you the option on your screen, Chris, to pop down at the bottom to say to log on. I think it's to join. I don't have anything that allows me to invite you. So you'll just have to see what that says. Okay, so back to talking about the platters. We were standing there, and one of the trigger items that we use is we will go on and we'll play music. And we were looking to play some music, back in its heyday, back in the 60s. We thought we would try to find some music from that era. And so as soon as Chris started playing, or I'm not sure who was playing, it was one of the Soul Sisters. They were playing American Pie, I believe. And something, I honestly can't explain it. Sometimes things will come to me whenever we're in doing these investigations. I don't think it was necessarily an audible voice, but I heard the platters, and no one else heard it. Like I said, I think that was what was. I didn't even know that the Platters was an actual band. So I asked if they would play that, and their song just happens to be one of their big hits is The Great Pretender. And so as soon as we started playing that, we started getting some different interaction, which was kind of neat. Another thing that happened that was one of those personal experiences where you had to be there, and we will be showing it at a later time. So we played that song, and we were getting activity from the song. So then afterwards, the girls asked if I heard anything else as far as music or anything to play. And the word Roscoe came to me. And honestly, I don't know if, at the time, I didn't know if it was a singer or some type of band or a song, but I asked them to look up on their phone the word Roscoe. And at that time, I was using my dowsing rods, which you guys have seen me use those in previous episodes. They're a L-shaped rod that it's a witching rod that's used to witch water. And so I was using those. And when they looked up Roscoe is a slang term for a gun. And so we thought that was pretty cool and incredible, because why that word would come to me, I don't know. But the rods do kind of look like a gun. So anyways, we just thought that was a pretty cool experience that happened there in the auditorium, combining that with the song about the platters. We've got April Lau on here. Hey, April. Yeah, Chris mentions the platters incident. Again, we'll show more of that, but I just wanted to give a little bit of background on that because it was something that was a little bit different, and not knowing the whole story behind it, it's something that could be a little bit challenging to follow. Amber says there were several times where the spirits were told not to touch you, but they persisted. I know you couldn't hear the team, but did you ever feel like the spirits were being disciplined? What Amber is talking about is the Estus Method that we did. And for those of you that, I know a lot of you are familiar with that, but in case you're not, what the Estus Method is where you take the spirit box, which is the tool that I was using last season in several episodes. It is a modified AM/FM radio. It's the annoying one that has the sound, but it scans through radio stations. And so what you do is you separate yourself off from everyone else. You take noise canceling headphones. They have to be noise canceling for this to work. And you use a blindfold, and you basically put yourself in a sensory deprivation state. And you plug into this SB7, and you're the only one that's actually hearing the voices that come over the SB7 or the spirit box. You get in a location that's far enough away from the people who are asking the questions. You also have to have a camera on you because you never know what's going to show up around you, and you want to be able to document everything since there's nobody else that's in the same location as you. And then you also put a camera on the people who are asking the questions. And so then they ask questions, and then you're supposed to respond, and you work as a medium, whereas the spirit box serves as a medium. This is kind of taking it to another level and putting yourself as a medium for what's being heard on the spirit box. You're also supposed to say anything that you feel, or whether it be somebody touching you, or whether you get a sensation of somebody standing over you, coming near you, breathing on you, whatever. But when you're in this sensory deprivation state, everything is heightened. So regardless of what it is, you're supposed to call all of that out. And during that time, for me, it always seems like my heart starts racing and things start happening. But you're really just more aware of that. I didn't know that they were being disciplined. I know that Christy and Josh and Jenny, they all took a dominant stance on that, which, I think you have to do when you're dealing with spirits in that kind of situation. You have to kind of assert yourself and set your rules that, you're not going to let anything happen. I know that those were very genuine reactions on their part, because I was way down the hall there and they were talking quietly. So even if I hadn't had the headphones on, I don't know if I could have heard them. But to answer your question, I didn't feel that way. I did feel like there was something at one point standing over me, or actually sitting beside me, because it kind of felt like it was sitting there and just kind of rubbing my arm, but I never felt in danger or anything of that nature. But it was nice to see that I felt like they had my back, and actually they were taking more of a prison guard stance or prison guard role at that point, just to kind of keep things in line. So I thought that was very cool. It was a different approach, and we have to approach these spirits different ways depending on the location. Let's see. I wish I could get Chris on here because she's got some really good insight to bring. Sheila says, crazy when Josh felt his ear get warm and turn red. Those of you that have followed us from season 1, you know that Josh is not a paranormal investigator. He's a videographer, but he seems to be a beacon, if you will, for activity. And they like to mess with him. And I often say he has a much harder job than I do, because while I'm out there trying to investigate and bring out this activity, he's trying to be a silent partner, if you will, and capture all of this and put the audience in the room with me. So he has a difficult job of trying to be quiet and trying to function as normal, I guess, in a extreme and uncomfortable situation. So he is often getting touched and getting his hair pulled. In this particular situation, we were in the cafeteria, and we had decided, since James Earl Ray was housed in the prison, we decided we were going to play the Martin Luther King I Have a Dream speech. And we did get activity from that. We also decided to play the news announcement announcing that Martin Luther King had been assassinated. And I don't know if it's the fact that maybe Josh looked a little similar to James Earl Ray or what, but when we kind of started pressing and asking questions of that nature, Josh started getting his ears touched and a burning sensation around. So I don't know if the camera picked it up. It didn't pick it up as clearly as what we saw, but his ears were definitely very red, which was pretty crazy. I'm going to see if there's any more questions. Hey, Owen, I'm doing well. I hope you are too. Holly Soderbaum, my sister, she says, have you ever done any investigation stuff like recording with lights on? Does that make a difference? Yes, I have. And that's actually something a lot of people ask. I actually like doing things with the lights on, as well as with during the daytime. Get a lot of different activity. When I slept in the hole, it was actually early morning, and the type of activity that I was getting there in the morning was a lot different than the type of activity that I've gotten in the night. It seems to be in these locations like prisons, hospitals, that sort of thing, when there's a shift change, or when there's types of residual activity, or when there's activity that could lead to a residual haunting, which would be just kind of going about the normal day-to-day tasks. That tends to show up a little more in the daylight hours. For me, I like to kind of have, I've got stuff in the bright light, but I kind of like to have an ambient light rather than complete darkness or bright light, because it helps me to see shadow figures and stuff better. I feel like you can get more shadow play with that. It definitely doesn't lend to the creep factor. I know a lot of investigators use IR lights, which is infrared lights, and infrared cameras, and that's great. I've actually added a couple of those static cameras to my tools for this season, just so we can hit some of the larger locations. But for me, I like to actually have light, because when we're dealing with flashlights and other tools, when it's in complete darkness and we're trying to show it on the video, I feel like it just adds a layer of transparency to it. And because it's easy for somebody to sit there and have a dark light or no light and have the camera shining on it, and for people to say, oh, there's somebody back there manipulating the flashlight or touching that tool or whatever, because what you can't see makes you question more. So I like to actually have lighting, a dim light on that, so you can better see the reaction, and so you can also see where we are in proximity to these tools and how that it will actually and how it's being operated, and that we're not manipulating it in any way. But I do know at times it does make a difference when it's dark. It adds to that creep factor. But when I'm filming, I definitely like to have light. Okay. Hey, Gerard, Amanda. Jason says abilities, Miranda, sensitive. It's something I don't really go a lot into. I am sensitive to certain things. I've talked about this on different podcasts as well as different speaking events that I do. I do draw when I go to these locations. I've yet to show it on an episode, and I may do that at some point, but I will start to see certain things. And it's never a full person. It's usually features. And so I will sit down and draw those. I know a lot of you folks have you've seen, some of the different drawings that I do, but I also do people drawings when I go to these locations, especially if I'm doing a home residence. I will do that, but it's not something I necessarily, put out there. So as far as being able to see features, sometimes I do hear words or sense certain things that may not be audible, but we've been able to match them up. So it's kind of an interesting thing. Dr. Sumner is asking if anyone has any suggestions on joining. I don't have anything allowing me to invite anybody on, which is kind of crazy. Let's see. I want to say hey to Laura and to Jake. Let's see. Let me try this right here. No, I was trying to tap the profile picture there, and it's not allowing. When I tap your profile picture, Christy, it just takes me to your page. It doesn't allow me to invite you on here. So I'm not. No. Anyways, I'm not sure. If anyone's got any suggestions, let me know. But I'm trying to tap that, and it just takes me to your page. Actually, let me try one thing to see if we can get her on. No, that didn't work. We'll keep looking, and maybe we'll get her on before the hour is up here. Let's see here. So we've got a bunch more questions. All right. Amber says, let's see. Why did you use the balloon and not a normal ball? My guess is it's lighter and you have the ability of placing a light or glow stick inside of it for visibility. We actually used, there was a glow in the dark balloon, which that's a new tool for me that Soul Sisters introduced. And you are correct. It is lighter, and you can more easily see that move. I actually had a ball in there that that when you bounce it on the ground, it's acts like a strobe light. And so I will often use that like on the edge of stairs or in different areas. If it's tapped, it will roll across. It's a little bit heavier than the balloon, but we were mostly using that one for visibility purposes. Let's see here. Anthony Young says the inmates are institutionalized. They all get up around 5:30, 6 a.m. That could be a reason for the early morning activity. I totally agree, and that's what I was thinking, because the activity that we were getting there in the hole was pretty. It was occurred just a little bit later than that. I think it was around maybe 8 in the morning. Because we were underground, it was completely dark, but we assumed that's why was getting the activity up in laundry because they would have been doing that around that time. Dave Clements says that he can testify that the flashlights are legit. My buddy Dave, he was a total skeptic, and I was on his show on the Furlough podcast, and both he and Chris went on and took my flashlights apart. So I can assure you, I'm not smart enough to rig a flashlight. So I wish I was, but I am not. So they can testify to that. Monica says you drew a face at a location with the other group before in season 1 in the kitchen. You are correct, Monica. I actually drew 2 in that location. One of them was the night that I was there by myself. I went and sat in the cafeteria and I drew a man, and I also put, I use my headphones a lot because I can hear the recorder in real time. And one of the things that I like to do, I don't rely on just one piece of equipment because, you know, I like to get multiple readings, because if it's just one, a lot of the time you can explain a lot of that. If it's 2, then that sort of helps to validate it. But one of the things that I'll do when I'm drawing is I will put my headphones on and listen to the recorder. I'll usually have flashlights, my EDI box, my REM pod, and the K2 meter sitting in there. And I'll start to see things, and it's never a full face. It's never a full body. It's always something like potentially kind eyes, high cheekbones, maybe a thin nose, just different features. And it's almost like, a lot of you may have heard of automatic writing, where basically you just sit and write whatever comes to you. And that's how my drawing is. And so the individual that I was drawing was very sad. And, you know, with a place like Brushy Mountain, it's really hard to match some of these individuals that you draw up, because there were so many people that went through the doors. This could have been a minor. This could have been a family member of a prisoner. This could have been a prisoner. It could have been a guard. But the individual was young and he was very sad. I will try to post those pictures up at some point. I also drew a woman on the second session. That was the second night that I was in there, and I was with a team whenever I drew her. But what I will do is, when I start to see these certain features, I'll start calling it out as I'm drawing it. And usually either the flashlight, the K2, or some of the different pieces of equipment will start to light up. And once they start to light up, that's what I draw. And to me, that just sort of confirms what I was doing. I'll try to share, like I said, I've done this on several podcasts, but I'll try to share some of that and maybe a couple of the stories behind a couple of the drawings that we've actually matched up. Let's see. Okay. Let's try. No, I'm still trying to get. Okay. Let's try tapping. Sorry, Chris. I just tried tapping this and I'm not getting this. It's not giving me the option to pull you on. Let's see if there are anything else. Sheila says, the whole paranormal stuff is out of my lane, but after meeting you at Club South and listening to your interviews on the Furlough podcast and watching season 1, I'm hooked on all the creepiness. Yeah, Sheila, she and I met down at the Furlough podcast event at Club South, and she hadn't watched any paranormal. And so we talked a little bit, and she went and watched my first season, and we've been, you know, kind of chatting on and off through Instagram about different stuff. And so it's really cool. A lot of the folks that we found that watch the episodes, people who watch are bikers, paranormal investigators, and history buffs. And I found that a lot of people who watch my episodes are maybe not necessarily interested in the paranormal, but love the history. And so they go and find an interest in it after watching. And that's one of the things that we really pride ourselves on with these episodes, is the fact that we cover the history, and that is actually first and foremost important in all this. And we want to select stories that are interesting enough that if we don't get any paranormal activity, that we will get, that we'll be able to still tell the story, and it will still be interesting enough that people will want to follow. So there's a lot of that this season. It looks like we've got 9 minutes, and then I'm gonna have to get off here. But so if there's any last minute questions, go ahead and get those typed in. I'm just going to take this time until there's any questions on there. I'm just going to take this time, and like I said, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed the first episode, and like I said, keep watching after the season. It won't be immediately after it. It may be in a few months, but we're going to actually release more about Brushy Mountain, just because that place is just so freaking cool. But we're going to cover that. We are going to be doing, we will be releasing an episode every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. And then on Thursday nights, we're going to meet right back here, and we will continue with Behind the Screams Live. And I'm going to see if I can get this figured out to where I can bring people on, because it's not giving me the option at all to be able to do that on my laptop. But we're going to go back. We're going to talk about each of these episodes. Any questions you all have, any suggestions or anything that you have. I love interacting and love being able to chat with you guys. So we thought that would be a cool way to incorporate Behind the Screams and do it different this year. Another thing we did on this episode that was different, that we don't typically do, is we had to caption some of the episode and some of the things the investigators were saying. We typically only caption what we catch on EVPs, and those are actually just suggestions. You know, some people may hear something a little bit different. That's just what we hear. But we, the nature of this location is very echoey, and so we wanted to go in, and we encourage people to listen with headphones, but we wanted to go in and caption that just so you guys could listen, maybe hear a little bit clearer about what we were saying, and not mistaken that for any type of spirit activity. So that was something that we did different this time. And like I said, we covered the road. We talked about the ride a little bit. We've got a few more comments here. Amber says, "You helped me with my situation. I know I'm not crazy and didn't create a haunting." And that's a good point. You know, people can sometimes create their own hauntings. That is not an uncommon thing. Yeah, part of what we do, and what I don't always show, you know, for the episodes, we're going to different locations. We don't do a lot of residential. Last season, you saw a big residential case that's still an open case for us at the Sunset Hill House. But one of the things when I go to private residences is to not so much get rid of any type of activity, because I don't cross anything over. I don't get rid of anything. That's not what I do as a paranormal investigator. I come in, people will tell me what's going on, and I will take a deeper look. I will do a preliminary interview to talk to people and see what they're experiencing, and ask, you know, a bunch of different questions about what they've done, what could have potentially brought it on, and then do an extensive research on the history of the location, as well as the land and the home itself. But a lot of the time what people, and I'll tell people when they want me to come in, I'll say, "Now, are you sure? Because, you know, you've got to sleep there." But and you just never know what you're going to get. Sometimes you get nothing, sometimes you get something. And I never classify anything as paranormal, even when I go to excuse me, even when I go to these places. I will, my job is to document the evidence and then let you decide what it is. But I will look to see what it's not, which making sure it's not old wiring, electricity issue, conduits, that sort of thing. We will check all of that. And really the main thing is just to confirm that people just want to know they're not crazy, that they're not making this up, that there is something there. And Amber, I got to work with her on a really cool place. She runs Club South down there in Birmingham, Alabama. And I'm not going to give a whole lot of that away because it could very well turn into something that we're going to highlight and show maybe later on next year. But the event 2 weeks ago was at the bar at Club South. It was a meet and greet they were hosting for me, and her and a lot of the other ladies that work there have experienced some different types of activity. And Dave and Chris being skeptics, I went down for the podcast and I went down for the meet and greet, and went in and did a little investigation at Club South. And like I said, I don't believe Dave and Chris are skeptics anymore. At least they're skeptical believers, maybe. So, but yes, we found some very interesting stuff there at Club South. Chris says, Dr. Sumner says, sorry everyone, thanks for watching episode 1 of Ghost Biker Explorations. And we'll try at some point to get Dr. Sumner on here, because I know she's got some really cool insight to add to the investigation. And I know she and the other ladies, if you are not familiar with Soul Sisters Paranormal, it is Dr. Sumner and her twin, Dr. Jenny Sumner, and their sister Michelle and 2 of their friends, and they have Soul Sisters Paranormal. And I have collaborated with them on several different occasions. They put out some really cool videos, so you need to go check their page out. I think they are working on a video of their experiences at Brushy Mountain that they will be releasing sometime next year as well. So you need to check their stuff out. She and I will be actually speaking at an event in North Carolina at the end of this month. So on our investigation of Henry River Mill Village. Maddie says, I'm hooked on it all. I love the history and I love the paranormal. It's addictive. Good watch. Thank you, Miranda. And thank you for watching. Anthony asks if I investigated D Block while at Brushy. I did the very first time that I was there back in 2014. I investigated in D Block. And that was actually one of those places where we were told, over time, the activity has changed at this location. And it does that at a lot of locations. And it can be for many different reasons. It can be the fact that there are a lot of people going in and investigating. It can be the fact that they are doing construction. And as I said earlier, Brushy is now a tourist destination. So they did a lot of stuff there. The activity that they were getting in D Block was rumored to, if you went in there first, it would follow you around the entire complex, and you wouldn't be able to get anything other than this one entity. And he was rumored to be a bully. And so we were told if we wanted to get other activity that we were not to go in there first. So we went in there, like I said, this was in October of 2014. We went in there and investigated at the end of the night. And I know I got some pretty good Class A EVPs at that one. But because it was so late and we had been in there for 7 or 8 hours at that point, we didn't focus a lot of our energy on that place. I did put a camera in there and a voice recorder this time. And so we did catch a couple little things, nothing too significant, but we did catch a couple small things that I don't know that I would classify them as Class A EVPs. Just we caught a lot of bangs and a lot of noises in there. But what was in there has since actually moved to another location, and it doesn't seem to follow you around like it did before. I believe they say that what was in there maybe moved to the auditorium. And I may be wrong, but I believe that's what they were saying on that. Jana says, this was the first episode I've seen, and I thought it was great. I'll definitely watch more, and I liked the captioning. It was helpful. Thank you, Jana. I appreciate that. And again, we appreciate any feedback because, we're just, kind of making it up as we go and wanting to put out something good that people are going to find interesting and exciting. So Chris has put, or Dr. Sumner, she has put the link to Soul Sisters Paranormal in the news feed here, www.soulsistersparanormal.com if you're interested. Like I said, I highly encourage you all to go and check them out. They have a great approach to the way they investigate. That's why I enjoy collaborating with them. I say when you put yourself in some of these situations, you need to be comfortable with the people that you're with. And I typically investigate alone with myself. And sometimes, most of the time I have Josh with me. Sometimes I'm by myself. But you always want to be comfortable with the people you are with because the situations get really real, really fast. And things can happen. Things can be done, and if you don't trust the people you're with, then it can make for a bad day or a bad night. So Soul Sisters is one of those that I enjoy their approach. They really take a scientific approach. They're very heavy on the history like Ghost Biker is, and they all hold advanced degrees. And so when they approach this, they take a real historical and scientific approach by telling the history and then releasing the evidence in a real methodical sort of way. Excuse me. Leon says, I enjoyed the first episode. I was on the edge of my seat and I can't wait to see the others. We have some very cool things in store for you guys this season. Some interesting places. Like I said, a lot of new locations. We did hit a couple commercial places. Which are always fun to do, but they're small commercial places. So, and we like to highlight those towns that are there. Sheila says, been watching and enjoying your stuff. Nice talking to you at Club South. I don't know that I'm going to say go Gators, but, they're better than the Vols right now. So, Dr. Sumner is from Florida and a Gator fan. So Sheila, I'm going to forgive you for that. And we will say that you were saying that for Dr. Sumner. But it looks like I've gone a little bit over the time I'd expected. And, I apologize that I was unable to bring Dr. Sumner on. Like I said, we'll try to do something about that. But I hope that you guys have enjoyed this first ever Behind the Screens live, and I hope that you will tune in for next week's episode on Tuesday night, as well as the Behind the Screens live on Thursday. We are going to have something very, very special on October. Let me check that date. We've got some more information coming up about it. It is on October 24th. I want to take just a minute to run over a few things that are coming up this weekend. I know there is the Giant Pumpkin Festival in Allard, Tennessee that I'm going to go to, and the Suicide Walk. The Out of the Darkness Suicide Walk is this coming Sunday in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I'm going to be participating in that. That is a cause that is near and dear to my heart, And so a lot of you guys donated. I had a sponsorship for this walk, and a lot of you guys donated to that, and I was able to not only reach my goal but exceed it. And so like I said, this Sunday I'll be walking in the Out of the Darkness Suicide Walk in Chattanooga. So again, thank you guys for that. Next weekend, October 12th, is the Oneida, Tennessee Zombie Fest, and this is going to be such a cool event. The proceeds this also go to benefit suicide prevention and awareness. So that is actually in my hometown, and I couldn't be more thrilled to be a part of it. I actually see where Oneida Zombie Fest is online here, and they say, see you next weekend. Oh, you will see me next weekend in the big Spirit Box Ghost Biker trailer with my Ghost Biker bike and official Ghost Biker merchandise. So we'll be up there. There is a lot going on with this, so look it up, check it out. There's a lot of stuff that you're going to want to see with that. And then, like I said, October 24th, we will not be doing a Behind the Screams live. We are actually going to be doing a special Behind the Screams live investigation. And this one is going to be a very cool story. We will have more information to follow on the town that we will be in, as well as what we will be investigating. We're going to be uncovering the history behind a legend that a lot of folks know about. So, and then actually doing investigations on it. So you guys are going to want to stay tuned for that October 24th. And then October 26th, if you're in the Hickory, North Carolina area, I invite you to come out to Booze and Brews at Henry River Mill Village, where Dr. Sumner and myself will be doing a dual presentation. The party is an 80s themed Halloween party, and it is in the village of Henry River Mill. Soul Sisters has done a video on that I collaborated with them in. And if you all don't know, that is the village where District 12 from the Hunger Games was filmed in. Katniss's house is there, as well as the general store. So that place not only has a paranormal history, but a very rich history of industry there in North Carolina, as well as Hollywood. So we're going to be dressing up and speaking that night. And then I just signed up to speak at Phantom Fest in Lebanon, Virginia, which is going to be on November 3rd. So we're gassing up the bike and the Jeep, loading up the trailer, and hitting the road for pretty much about every weekend this month and most of November. So we're going to be really busy, but we're looking forward to being on here and chatting with you guys next Thursday. So I'm just looking over this right here. Looks like Maddie Harness is going to be at the Pumpkin Festival. I hope to see you guys there. Y'all need to check that out. It's complete with giant, huge pumpkins, watermelons, gourds, biggest I've ever seen. And then craft booths and car show, bike show. It's a lot of fun, and it's in Allard, Tennessee. So anyways, like I said, I've gone just a little bit over. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. Thank you for tuning in, and I'm going to wrap this up, and we will see you. If I don't see you this weekend at Allard or at the Suicide Walk, I hope to see you next Thursday night. Take care. Goodbye.